Hello and welcome to the Caddie Tales Podcast. I am Mark the Caddy, joined as always by my sidekick, colleague, and friend, and fellow looper, Nick. And we are excited to talk to you once again about how the beautiful game of golf intersects with the game of life and how we can translate lessons from both arenas so beautifully. Today, we also have the pleasure of being joined by Kurt Koenigs. Kurt is a man that I have gotten to know over the last number of months through my work at the local sober house, and it's a place where Kurt is a longtime resident and has just been killing it, making healthy choices, living a healthy life, and making a positive impact in the life of others. But also, Kurt is a bit of a local legend around here. And so we want to talk to him about that. Thank you for joining us today, Kurt.
Hey, man, I am absolutely thrilled to be here, fellas.
All right. Before we get to you, I do want to give a quick shout out to a couple of groups. First of all, Zero Restriction Golf Apparel. Check them out at zerorestriction.com. Type in the promo code BESTBALL20 and you can get yourself a nice little discount there. Zero Restriction has some amazing swag. I love the rain jacket that I have, and as I look forward to some kind of spring golf with some elements, it's just an awesome thing to have in my bag. So check them out at zerorestriction.com. Also, I got some tees the other day, golf tees, with a Caddie Tales logo on the top of them. And they are just fire. Absolutely beautiful custom tees from Western Birch. So go to westernbirch.com. Again, type in the promo code here, Best Ball, to get yourself a free gift. That's Western Birch and Zero Restriction, our friends of the Caddie Tales podcast. So, hey, Kurt, you know, like I said, you're a bit of a local legend around here. Real quickly, I actually remember a number of years going through a drive-thru at McDonald's and commenting to my wife or whatever, oh, that guy is really friendly or good. And so other than that, that was my only ever interaction with you. But I have now come to learn that you have been a staple of the McDonald's drive-thru window for many, many years. Why don't you give our listeners just a brief rundown or background of yourself?
Well, it was early in the 90s, and I was very unhappy with my job, and I was actually at McDonald's for something to eat, and an old acquaintance, she was a couple years younger than me in high school. She was a manager at McDonald's, Denise Mikolajczyk, and she says, "Hey, Kurt, you looking for a job?" And I was unhappy where I was at, so I filled out an application, and the rest is history, so to speak.
Yeah. And you know what we want to talk about today and why we thought it would be fun to have you on, and as you and I have talked quite a bit over the last few weeks, it doesn't matter if you're at McDonald's, if you're a caddy, if you're somewhere else, we get to interact with people and provide quality service. And we can choose to either do that in a really positive way that impacts people and makes their day better, or we can gripe our way through it and get frustrated and throw tantrums and all that such. And you are well known for doing it in a way that should inspire everybody else in their jobs. And I know I have thought about should make me a better caddy. I do want to ask Nick. Nick is a lifelong Sheboygan County resident.
Yep.
And Nick, you described Kurt in a way to me that I thought was awesome yesterday when we were texting back and forth. Can you tell our listeners what you said about him?
Well, I said Kurt's probably the most famous person in Sheboygan that's not well known outside of Sheboygan. Kurt could probably run for mayor. He's quite the local celebrity. I'm actually a big fan, so I'm pretty excited to have him on today.
I thought that was crazy. Yes, he's, in Sheboygan County here. Everybody knows who he is. I actually mentioned him to my brother-in-law, and he said, "Oh yeah, I know Kurt, and he used to come and watch us play softball or whatever." So everybody knows him, and I thought it was funny when you said, "I'm a big fan."
Yes.
And what I am just thinking about constantly is I'm a caddy. Kurt works at McDonald's. You're a caddy, Nick. None of us are out there in jobs that, you know, the world holds up as elite. All right? We're not curing cancer or whatever. And yet, we know through our job, we can have a pretty profound impact on somebody's big day. And Kurt, over the course of car after car after car after car, has had a pretty big impact on countless residents in this area. But Kurt, it didn't always start that way. You were telling me that maybe it was a little bit of a tough beginning, and then there was a moment that changed everything. Can you tell our listeners what that was? Give a little background on that.
I can, and actually I get a little emotional and choked up about it. I had just completed my first 2 weeks, and I was struggling. And the management came to me and they said, "Kurt, you're pretty terrible at this. You have cash shortages. You're a mess. You're really slow." And they said, "There is something that that people like about you, so we're going to keep you around." And let me catch myself here. So at that moment, it was either sink or swim. And I decided to swim, but let me just give a big shout out to Carol Falk and Faye Reinwand, because they're the two that decided to keep me around. Thanks, guys.
Well, I mean, that's awesome. And hearing you be emotional about it, you know, we need people to take a chance on us. And you were in a situation where you were not, you know, reaching the expectations or even your potential. And it's the easy decision to say, hey, we're going to kick this person to the curb. And they chose not to, so definitely a shout out to them. But what I find most intriguing about that is they said, but people like you. There's something about you that people like, all right? And that goes such a long way. Most people, and I think we forget this in this day and age of Twitter and all this, most people on a day-to-day basis, as you're interacting in the real world, are reasonable. And if you're kind, if you're doing your best, if you're thoughtful, nobody wants to see other people fail, or we want people to succeed. And being likable, like you are, it goes a long way. Nick, wouldn't you agree though? Like for caddying, for instance, not every caddy is going to nail every read perfectly. Not every caddy is going to give all information. I mean, you've had plenty of players come to you and say, like Kurt's managers did to him, "Nick, you're a mess," you know, right?
Thank you. Yeah. No, my first year, I think.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I think I was terrible my first year. So yeah, like you said,
I actually think back to that. Like, how bad was I at this? We've talked about that before. But there's a difference between that caddy who's got a humble spirit and is, you know, just likable, and how players are willing to interact and work together then, versus the guy who's just a jerk. Like, if he's a jerk and bad at his job, you want him off the loop, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But if he's a nice guy, most people are cool and they're patient, and, you know, and so Kurt, you had that. You had somebody who was like, there's more to this guy than just the mistakes. There's more to this guy than the fact that he hasn't, you know, picked up on this as quickly as we'd like. There's something about him that is special. And it's a reminder that none of us are just one thing. None of us have a day that just tells the whole story. And your story was bigger than, oh, you're a little slow. And thankfully somebody saw you through. And now 30 years later, as they say, the rest is history. Now, with that said, we've called you a legend. We've talked about how you could run for mayor and stuff like that. But you used a phrase with me, Kurt, when we were talking, that you are also overrated. Because as we've talked, you'll smile. That people know who you are, right? You're a humble guy, but people know who you are.
Yes. And
people
overrated.
No, I was gonna say people like you, but you also said I'm overrated. Tell us what you mean by that.
Okay, so I do what I do, and hopefully most days I do it well. But you have a lot of people that you don't even see that do multiple things. For example, managers, there's a lot of times they have to be in 8 different places at once, and they're very underrated. And, I do one thing, and I'm very singular. I don't have many facets to my game, but like I said, there's a lot of people that do multiple things where I do one thing, and I'm very visible, where the people that do many different things aren't visible, and you don't see them behind the scenes, so to speak.
Right. They make you look good, and you make them look good. And that's called being a team, And then there's that humble spirit again. I also think, we should celebrate people who are, really, really good at one thing instead of focusing on the things they're not good at. Like McDonald's has you at the drive-thru menu exclusively, right, Kurt?
Exclusively, because if I were to be brought up front, my manager, Laura, Kurt probably wouldn't be around much longer. And I don't mean if she would fire me, she'd probably kill me, man.
But I think it's so easy to focus on what people aren't instead of focusing on what people are. And it's like, hey, we've got a guy who is exceptional and is making a difference in this arena. Let's let him fly. Let's let him soar. And let's let him make a difference rather than be annoyed that he's not as good in this area and try to force it, And I think that's something that we could all kind of learn from, but as well as your humble spirit, willing to say you're overrated, because some people would get cocky. I think that's a challenge for caddies, is that there's a certain inherent nature to it where being cocky is kind of maybe celebrated or comes with the gig. And Nick, what do you think? Do you agree that that's maybe an unbecoming trait? I'm distinguishing between cockiness and confidence.
Yeah, it's like a false bravado, wouldn't you say? Yeah, a lot of new caddies have it. Like they think that it's gonna, kind of help them out. But yeah, I don't know. Yeah, not a big fan.
Right, and I think we don't want to. I'll always say when somebody hits a long putt or whatever, and it's like they want to, oh, great read, I'm very hesitant to take any credit for that, because I want to be humble, but I also want to be humble enough to say I'm also not the cause. I don't think so lowly of myself that I'm the cause of all the putts you're going to miss, too.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
And so if I don't want the credit, if I can't, take the blame for all the bad ones, I don't want to take all the credit for the good ones. And instead just be confident in my abilities and the information I give and such, and avoid being cocky. And certainly there's times we're overrated. Some people come and they have a great experience and they give us way too much credit, and they don't see all the other things that go into making it a top-notch day, or their role in it as well. Now, Kurt, here's something that I think is probably much more of a challenge for you in a lot of ways. I asked you this yesterday. How many customers do you think you have served over the years?
Way too many to count. Way to count. And because I've been around for so very long, there's a lot of people that know my name, and I wish that I knew more names that I do. And now that we're talking about customers, I want to mention that a lot of times we think the customer is a bad guy, this, that, the other thing. Yeah. Absolutely not. As a rule, customers want their product in a timely fashion at a fair price. And you want to look at them sometimes as bad guys. No, that's not the case.
Right. That's what I was going to get to. It's more of a challenge for you even because you see so many people. And over the course of time, there are going to be some negative experiences. There are going to be some stressful moments. And I find that when I am in a customer service situation, when I'm the customer, too often nowadays, it feels like an adversarial situation. Like the customer service rep doesn't want to be there. They're easily annoyed and frustrated. They want to do the bare minimum. And so when I see good customer service, it stands out like crazy. For caddies, it's the same way. You have, over the course of a season, X number of people who are kind of tough to deal with. And if you're not careful, you start to look at them as enemies, like you just said. And that's not what they are at all. You've got to, like, every person kind of reset and say, this isn't a bad person. They're just looking to get some food quickly. And they're looking to do so without much of a hassle. And you get to be a part of that.
I do. And it's as simple as, hey, we can't, when somebody gets upset about a burger or whatever, if we're going to take that personally, we should probably think about doing something else. That's it.
Yeah. Right. And it's easy to take things personally when people are griping. But the reality is you don't own that. You're doing your best to make a positive impact on their day. They're not the enemy. And I also think, so Kurt, people minimize. People have so many negative interactions through a day, or they're so stressed. We see that in our world all the time. Do you take satisfaction? I mean, is it really a source of great joy for you to know that in most instances people come through and you have kind of a way about you, a presence about you, a way that you do your job that even if it's for a short time gives them a better day? Like, have you found great satisfaction in that?
I have. I mean, yeah. I mean, when I can make somebody's day better, it's just, it's like getting your cake and eating it too. It's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. What do you like the most about your job, though?
Well, let me just say this. I mean, a lot of people view customer service as, bad, but I'll just give you an example. I mean, I get to see cute little kids, I get to see pretty ladies, and I get to talk about sports. I get to talk about sports with guys. That's generally how my day goes, man. What's wrong with that? Nothing.
Yeah. Right? Yeah, right. Finding joy in the little things or satisfaction. I love it. Some people still in this area think that you are retired. Can you tell a little bit of background on that, Kurt, that a few years ago, I can't remember what it was, you retired, but then you came out of retirement. Give us a little bit of that story.
Okay.
Like Michael Jordan.
Yes. I did retire because, I was a little burnt, a little stressed out, and the idea wasn't not to do anything. I tried something different, and I wasn't very good at it. So I decided probably a few months later to go do what I do. And that was at North Avenue. I am now at the McDonald's by the movie theater West. So people ask me why I chose that and the other thing. But the bottom line is when you're around for a very long time, which I have been, once in a while you just need to switch things up.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So now I'm going to drive by the movie theater this week, and I'm going to know the Caddie Tales podcast has reached the masses when I see the line of cars wrapped around the building.
Yeah. Yeah, that's all us.
Why? But I think that too. What you get is, in America, the dream of retirement is kind of there in front of people, and I'm not saying everyone's got to like dig ditches until they're 80. Our bodies slow down and stuff like that, but it's nice to wake up with meaning and a purpose and have something to do, right, Kurt?
Oh man, I'll tell you what. I have Wednesdays off as a rule, but once Thursday gets, I love having Wednesdays off, but once Thursday gets there, I'm even more excited because I get to go do what I love to do. So.
Yeah, that's really great. Now, what is something that you want people to know about their role as the customer? What's a way that customers can make the experience better? I know you're trying to make the experience better, but what's a way the customers can make the experience maybe a little more positive?
Hey man, just come through and I guess I like to focus on word economy. If you have an order, don't say in 27 words what you can say in 5. I love word economy because as a fast food guy, I need to process a lot of information very quickly. And if there's less words, it goes faster. And also, like my bosses, I have to process a lot of information, but the amount of information that they have to process, being in charge of a lot of people, I want no part of their world, and they do a very admirable job at it.
Yeah. Well, you raise a good point, because certainly it's the role of the person doing customer service to strive to provide just top-notch effort and to come through for people. But I tend to think also we have a role as customers, and I think about golfers as it relates to caddies. Of course, the caddy is working for you. You're paying them, all right? With that said, there are things that you can do that make the day better, and it's going to make it better for the caddy. It's going to make it better for you as a result. It's a circular thing. Because I said to you, Kurt, when you told me that word economy yesterday, I said right away, because I go through McDonald's really for my son, and I was like, number 7, large size with a Dr. Pepper, and you're like, that's word economy.
Can I get an amen from the crowd?
And I'm like, sometimes I'm sitting behind people in the drive-thru line, and I'm like, what the heck are they doing? This is crazy. And is the McDonald's menu somehow changed dramatically over the last 50 years? So sometimes I'm a little confused, but it's like, all right, in the relationship between customer service and customer, there's certainly the expectation that the customer service rep does a good job. But on the flip side, the customer shouldn't have the right to just be a dummy or screw around or be a jerk or whatever. So there are things you can do to make the experience better. And so certainly I think that's something to be mindful of. Like Nick, we would say we're better caddies when people don't come with tanks for bags or stuff like that.
Yeah, make me or help me help you, right?
Yeah, help me help you is a phrase that I've come to like, is help me help you. And I think the same is true no matter what industry you are in. What are you most proud of, though, Kurt, over your career?
Longevity and the way I present my self in my job, the overall joy. And first of all, let me say that's got to do with my faith in God and Jesus Christ. And also, my job is easy because the customers are they're amazing. And I also have good genetics. My family, my mom and dad, very joyful people. And my dad passed, but very joyful people. And I had good genes as far as that was concerned.
Right. No, that's good. And yeah, that's awesome. Yes. For a long period of time, you found joy in the work that you were given. You found meaning in it. You found purpose. You kept a positive attitude, which is so hard to do. I look at caddies from the start of the season to the end of the season, how it becomes very easy, doesn't it, for us, Nick, to go from excited and loving it to, I can't wait till this is done.
Yeah, it's kind of like like a reverse bell curve, right?
Right, and I think we got to learn from people like Kurt to say, no, every day is an opportunity.
Yeah,
and
I would describe Kirk as like relentlessly happy in my interactions with him. I'd usually be in like my caddy uniform and I'd see Kurt and maybe I'd be like a little bummed about going to work, and Kurt would see me and be like, beautiful day for the golf course, huh? I'd be like, yeah. You kind of get me fired up to go to work, and I always appreciated that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's always funny to me too, Nick, by the way, as an aside, for as much as you work out and stuff, how much McDonald's you go through.
I work out so I can eat poorly, okay?
Yeah. Now, Kurt, speaking of that, you don't come back with McDonald's very often. Now, you did introduce me to McDonald's cookies, and those are unbelievable. The most underrated thing on the menu. Would you agree?
Oh, our McDonald's cookies are lights out, man.
Yeah. But one time you came back from work and you had, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you ate a bacon double quarter pounder and 2 triple cheeseburgers after you got back from work. Was that your order?
That was my order, and I don't do that very often. I don't eat McDonald's every day, but I'm kind of like Nick. I don't work out a ton, but I do my push-ups, and most of the time I do watch what I eat.
Yeah. There's a lot of days you'll be like, oh, I gotta watch my carbs, or I'm not gonna eat dinner today. I had a big lunch or whatever. But then that day, I'm rarely disgusted by what people can put down. And I'm like picturing my stomach and what that would have done to my system and how many problems would have come about because of that meal. And so maybe disgust is not the right word. Maybe I was in awe because that was quite a feat. That was something I hadn't seen before. That was a lot of beef. But this is a little bit of a different podcast episode for our listeners. It's a little less golf centric, it seems. And yet, why I wanted to have Kurt here is because I think there are amazing parallels. And I think that, we can learn something about the joy that we bring to our jobs, for sure. And we also need that reminder that people are basically, most people are going to be cool, and they're just looking to get what they paid for. They're looking for a positive experience. And Kurt has found a way to turn the McDonald's drive-thru menu or window into that. All right. And then we get to do that as caddies. And like I said, we're not curing cancer. We're not in these jobs that get lifted up as amazing. But what strikes me, or what gets me up every day, is if you're making an honest living, if you're seeking to serve your neighbor, if you're seeking to do it to the best of the abilities that you've been given, then there's great purpose in that. There's great meaning. There's great value. Okay? And the world doesn't, it needs all kinds. And so I don't think we should ever look down on the person who's providing customer service. I think that's an inherent mistake that people might make is, they're in this menial job. They don't make a lot of money. They're working retail. Their life isn't as important as mine. I'm better than they are. Those types of things, whether we like it or not, are kind of ingrained into our consciousness. And I'm like, on the flip side, just like I value a doctor and I go and I get, medicine or a cure or whatever, I need that person in my life and I feel better. Well, I need the person in my life who I can go to the cell phone store, and instead of me throwing my phone against the wall because I can't figure something out, or, I'm so frustrated with technology, and yet you have somebody there who can very patiently and kindly help you out. And the world needs that person too. And there's great value, and there's great meaning, and there's great purpose in that. So I think we should all look at our jobs, no matter what they are, in the way that Kurt looks at his, in a way that would have people say, hey, he's the mayor of Sheboygan.
Mark, let me just say this. I am anything but devalued by the customer. I am just incredibly elevated by the customer.
Yeah.
Simply put.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I think that's also, it goes hand in hand. It's part of the attitude that you bring to it too. Like I said, if you're cool with them, they want to work good with you. As opposed to, I've gone to McDonald's some before, the one by my house, the south side occasionally, you can't even get the person to like look up at you or whatever. And so you're an example, hopefully, that people will learn and grow from. Nick, anything else you want to ask Kurt or say about him?
No, I'm just kind of honored to be sharing, to have him on the podcast. Like I said, I'm a huge fan. I'm a little starstruck right now, but yeah, it's an honor.
Hey, Nick,
and I want to thank him for giving me a positive day often. So
I appreciate that, Nick. And let me just say this: I'm gonna get in trouble for this, but next time you come to the drive-thru, I'm gonna give you a signed Kurt hat. And don't tell my boss, which I just did, because she's gonna be mad. Okay, man.
All right, awesome.
Kurt tried to get me to wear a Packers hat today. I had to politely, and one other thing I want to say before we go too is, I've been very open with my past struggles on the podcast and on Twitter and in various writings. Kurt, obviously, like I said, I got to know him through him living at the sober house, so you can put two and two together that there's been some issues in the past. We are all more than one thing, and it's so easy to define people by their worst moments or their worst trait. And I hope that somebody like Kurt, in some small way, I hope somebody like me, are examples that we're more than that. We're more than those worst moments. We're more than that past. And even with that in our lives, there's also good, and there's also things that we can bring to the table. And so I think people, I'd encourage you to see that in others. When I go, for instance, to the sober house, I'll be there later today. Kurt, at 3:00, I'll see you then, unless you're at work. And when I look at the people there, I don't look and say, oh, these guys are just addicts or whatever, or they're just people no, there's more to them. They're also this and that and whatever, and there's a lot of good there. And so I think that's how we should approach people as well. And I think that Kurt has also accepted that in his life, that there's also a lot of good there. And we are deeply blessed and more fortunate to have been in his presence and his company. So, thank you, Kurt, for joining us today. We are certainly really honored by that, and hopefully some people in Sheboygan will give the Caddie Tales podcast a listen. We'll throw out some things that would let people know, maybe a different target audience than normal, that you were on the podcast this week. And before we go, though, anything else that you'd like to share with our listeners?
Hey, it was just a thrill to be here, and I just want everybody to know that obviously I love what I do, and us three next Wednesday, at some point we're going to Gussie's.
Yeah, Gussie's. Kurt's old school Sheboygan, because the restaurant has a different name, but he still calls it by its old name, which I can kind of differentiate who's lived in Sheboygan a long time by if they call it Gussie's or the Northwestern House. But Kurt and I have talked about that, how I was unprepared for you were with me the first time we went there. I went there, Nick, and the amount of butter on the burgers, that was insane. But Kurt loves it. And you know what Kurt's also introduced me to? Faye's Pizza.
Oh yeah, Faze is awesome.
Yeah, and specifically the bacon double cheeseburger deluxe pizza, but we've also gotten some other ones as well. So I had never
Do they
had
have a
Faye.
salad pizza?
Wow.
Honestly, with all the lettuce and tomatoes on the bacon double cheeseburger
Yeah.
deluxe, you could make a salad out of it.
It's true.
Yeah. No, so all right. Well, hey, Kurt, thank you so much. And we generally close our podcast with a segment we call heavy baggage. During the winter, we are not focusing on carrying heavy bags out on the golf course, but we're maybe trying to lighten the load of people in need. And today, instead of just me and Nick both doing that, what I do is encourage all of our listeners to take Kurt as an example, recognize that the person on the other side of the interaction is a person of great value who brings a lot to the table, and allow them to lighten your load by bringing their joy and their skill and their ability into your day. And whether it's at the McDonald's drive-thru window or it's out on the golf course where we're carrying bags, we are pleased to serve you, and we hope that in some small way, as we make each other's days better, we are reminded of the greatest truth that I know, or the one that I carry with me every moment of my days, and that is, no matter how bad it has gotten, no matter how bad it seems, whether we're in the deepest bunker or so far out of bounds we don't know how we're going to find our way back, on this side of the ground, there's always a next shot, and it's full of hope and opportunity. So take yours.
Too blessed to be stressed, man.